We are working on GMetrix Access 2016 Skills Review 1. Task 1 tells us in the Add Customers form, arrange the customer ID, customer name, and sales rep ID controls to be aligned to the left. To do that, what we want to do is go ahead and open that form in Design View. So we'll right click here and select Design View. And then what we want to do is select these three fields, starting with customer ID. And then I'm going to hold my control key on my keyboard and select the other two fields it asks us to align. With those selected, I'm going to go to the Arrange tab here at the top. And the Sizing and Ordering group, I'm going to go ahead and select Align Left. And notice that other field got brought over to the left. We'll go ahead and close out of this. And we'll click Next. Task 2 asks us to create a new field in the Customers table called Join Date. And then it asks us to use the date and time type. It says make this field default to the current date, and it says save changes to the table. To do that, what we want to do is open up the Customers table, and we'll open that in Design View. We'll go ahead and add the new field. We'll make the date type date and time. We'll go back to our join field, and what we want to do here is in the default value, click these dots, and in our functions, we want to do date and time, and we want to select date. We'll double click. And notice it went ahead and put that function there. We'll click OK. And then we'll go ahead and save and close. We'll go ahead and click Next. Task 3 asks us to go to the customer's report, change the layout to landscape, and then it tells us to insert the FT logo image in our GMetrix templates folder to the top right corner of the report. Let's go ahead and open up the customer's report in Design View. We'll go to the Page Setup group here at the top. In the page layout, we want to go ahead and change this to landscape. Let's go back to the Design tab, and in our Controls group, what we want to do is click Insert Image. I'm going to go ahead and browse to my GMetrix templates folder, and I'm going to go ahead and select this. We'll click OK. And it's been loaded to my cursor. I can just click now, and it went ahead and inserted that for me. We'll go ahead and click Next. Task 4 tells us, using the application parts, create an issues table. The issues table should relate to the customers table so that each customer can have many issues. It says show the customer ID field and name the lookup column customer issues. We want to go to the Create tab here at the top, and where we're going is Templates, Application Parts, and in our Quick Start, we're going to go ahead and select Issues. For this, one customers to many issues, we want that selected. So we'll go ahead and click Next. In our field from customers, we want customer ID selected. So we'll keep that. And then what name would you like for your lookup column? Let's go ahead and change field 1 to customer issues, capital C, capital I. We'll go ahead and click Create. And we'll click Next. Task 5 tells us to add a relationship between items table and the orders table. It says that this relationship should be between the item ID in the items table and the product ID in the orders table. It says create the relationship but do not enforce referential integrity. It says save the new relationship and leave the relationships view open. We want to go to the database tool at the top. In the relationships group, we want to select relationships. And then what we want to do is click show table. And the two tables that we want to open are the items table and the orders table. And that's been placed behind this box. We can click close now. What we want to do for this, and there's a few ways to make a relationship, but I'm just going to go ahead and click item ID. And I'm going to click and drag it on top of product ID, which opens up this box here. We'll go ahead and click create. It says to save the relationship. So we'll go ahead and right click on that tab and click save. We'll go ahead and click next. Task 6 asks us to import sheet 1 of the Excel workbook annual sales. It tells us that this file is in our GMetrix templates folder and that we're going to call this new table annual sales. It tells us to accept all other defaults. To do that, what we want to do is go to the external tab here at the top. We're in the import and link. And what we want to do is select Excel. We'll go ahead and map to our GMetrix templates folder by clicking browse. Once we're in that folder, we'll go ahead and select annual sales and we'll click open. We'll go ahead and leave import the source data into a new table in the current document. We'll click OK. It tells us that we're importing sheet 1, so we'll keep that selected. These are row headings, so we'll leave that. It also tells us to accept the default, so we'll keep it. And you can click through this, or you can click Finish. We'll click Close. And then what we want to do here is right-click on sheet 1 and select Rename. And we'll go ahead and type in Annual Sales. We'll hit Enter to set the title. And we'll click Next. Task 7 wants us to delete the customer's report from the database. What we'll do is we'll right-click here on Customers. We'll select Delete. And we can click Next. Task 8 wants us to go to the shipping date query. It tells us that in that query, we want to hide the distributor ID from the results. And it tells us to sort the distributor name in ascending order. It tells us to run the query and then save our work. What we want to do is just right-click on shipping date so we can select Design View. We want to uncheck this box for Show in the distributor ID. And in the distributor name, we want to make our sort here ascending. It tells us to run it, so we'll click Run. And it tells us to then save. So we'll right-click here on this tab and click Save. We'll go ahead and click Next. Task 9 tells us in the cost per item query, we want to insert a field that will take the cost per box field and divide it by the units per box field to get the cost per item. It tells us to run and save our work. What we want to do is right-click on the cost per item query, and we're going to look at it in Design View. We need to go to the first empty box, which is the 5th field. We're on the Query Tools Design tab, and what we want to do is select Builder. And there are quite a few ways to do this. In my opinion, the easiest way to do this is to go ahead and select cost per box here. We're on the cost per item in the expression element. If I double click there, it puts that in parentheses for me. And what I'm going to do is just hit the divide symbol on my keyboard. And then I can select units per box. And I can click OK. We'll click Run. And then we'll go ahead and save this. We'll click Next. Task 10 wants us to create a navigation form using horizontal tabs. It tells us to add the customer's form and the customer's report to the form. And it tells us to save it with customer navigation as the name of the form. And it tells us do not close the form. To do that, we want to go to the Create tab here at the top. In the Forms group, we want to select Navigation dropdown and select Horizontal tabs. From here, we want to click and drag Add Customers to the top part of this form right here and let go. And then we're going to do the same for reports. We're going to click Customers and just click and drag to the right of Add Customers. We'll go ahead and right-click here on the Navigation Form tab and click Save so that we can give it the name Customer Navigation. We'll click OK. And it tells us to leave the form open, so we'll click Next. Task 11 tells us using the application parts, create a comments table. The comments table should relate to the sales reps table so that each sales rep can have many comments. It says make it show the ID field and name the lookup column sales representative. We want to go to the Create tab here at the top. We're in the Templates group. We want to click Application Parts dropdown. And in the Quick Start group, we want to select Comments. In this section, we want to select Sales Reps. We'll click Next. In the field from Sales Reps, we want to select ID. And in the What name would you like for your lookup column, we want to change field 1 to say Sales Representative. We'll click Create. And we'll click Next. Task 12 asks us to go ahead and rename the shipping date query to estimated shipping date. What we want to do is right-click here on the shipping date query and click Rename. And we'll go ahead and type in the new name. We'll hit Enter to set our text. And we'll click Next. Task 13 wants us to modify the customer's report by changing the control margins of the customer ID and customer name controls to medium. It tells us to save the changes to the report. What we want to do is right-click here on the customer's report and select Design View. What we want to do under Detail, select Customer ID, and what I'm going to hold is the Control key on my keyboard as I select Customer Name so that I have both selected at the same time. From here, I want to go to the Arrange tab, and in our position group, I want to select Control Margins dropdown and select Medium. We'll go ahead and click off that. It tells us to save the changes to the report, so we'll right-click here on this tab and click Save. And we'll click Next. Task 14 asks us to filter the data in the sales reps table to only show sales reps hired from January 1st, 2011 to February 1st, 2011, and then it tells us to save the results. Let's go ahead and open up the sales reps table. In our hire date, we want to click this drop down so that we can select date filters, and then what we want to select is between. For our oldest date, we want to type in January 1st, 2011, and for our newest date, we want to select February 1st, 2011. We'll click OK. It tells us to save our results, so we'll right-click here on the Sales Reps tab and click Save. And we'll click Next. Task 15 wants us to filter the customer's report to only display records with a customer ID greater than or equal to 3. What we want to do is open up the customer's reports. And then what I'm going to do is put my cursor right here in front of the 1 in this report. And then in the Sort and Filter group, I want to select Filter. In our number of filters, I want to select greater than. And then notice it says is greater than or equal to, even though the main filter just said greater than. And what I want to put here is 3. And I'll click OK. I'll go ahead and click Next. Task 16 wants us to rename the customer's report to Customer Details. It tells us to then open up that report and change the title to the same report's name that we just gave the report. And then it tells us to delete the date content holder at the bottom of the report and change it with a different one. Let's go ahead and begin by right-clicking on Customers here and selecting Rename. And we'll go ahead and type Customer Details. We'll hit Enter to set our text. Now I'm going to right-click on this to open it in Design View. We'll go ahead and change the title here from Customers to Customer Details. It tells us to delete this content holder. So we'll select the outside edge and we'll hit the delete key on our keyboard. From here, we're on the Design tab, and what we want to do is go to the Header Footer section and select Page Numbers. Page in is correct. We want to change our position to bottom of page, and then the alignment being center is okay. We'll go ahead and click OK, and we'll go ahead and click Next. Task 17 wants us to add the ID field found in the Sales Reps table and put it in the Sales Rep Payment query. And it tells us to make that ID field the first column in the query, and then we'll save the changes. We'll go ahead and right-click on the Sales Rep Payment query, and we'll open it in Design View. What we want to do is just double-click ID, and then I'm going to select the entire column here, and then I can click and drag that over. And now that's the first field. It tells us to save it. We'll click Next. Task 18 wants us to edit the existing relationship between the sales reps tables and the distributor table so that the relationship is on the distributor ID field in both tables. And it tells us to enforce referential integrity, and then it tells us to save the changes. Let's go to the Database Tools tab here at the top. We're in the Relationships group. We want to select Relationships. I'm going to go ahead and select this line here and then click Edit Relationships. In the distributor table, we want to change it from distributor name to distributor ID. In the sales reps, this is correct, so we'll leave that. And then we just want to go ahead and check the box that says Enforce Referential Integrity. We'll click OK, and we'll go ahead and save that. And we'll click Next. Task 19 wants us to open up the Add Customers form and apply a format to the customer ID, customer name, and sales rep ID controls. It wants it to have a red shape outline that's 2 points thick. Let's go ahead and open up that form in Design View. So we'll right-click on it, select Design View. I'm going to go ahead and select the first field here, and then holding the Control key on my keyboard, I'm going to select the other 2 fields. And we have that orange box around each of those selections, so we know they're all selected. From here, I want to go to the Format tab. In our Control Formatting, I want to select Shape Outline dropdown. And I'm going to select red under the standard colors. And then I'm going to go back to Shape Outline dropdown. And this time I'm going to change line thickness to 2 points. We'll go ahead and click off that. And we'll click Next. Task 20 wants us to create a new report using the order ID, distributor ID, and order date fields from the orders table, and the distributor name field from the distributor table. It tells us to view the data by distributor, and then it tells us to sort the report by distributor ID in ascending order, and it tells us to name the report orders by distributor. Let's go ahead and go to the Create tab here at the top, and what we want to do is select the Report Wizard. We're going to change our table queries to the Orders table, and we'll select Order ID, and we'll carry that over, Distributor ID, and then we'll go back to Order ID and bring that over. Now we're going to change our table to Distributor, and the field that we want to select is Distributor Name, so we'll go ahead and select that and bring that over as well. We'll click Next. We're going to view the data by distributor. We'll click Next. We'll click Next. In this section, we want to select Distributor ID. Ascending is fine here. We'll click Next. On this screen, we'll also click Next. And then we'll go ahead and type in the title, Orders by Distributor. And we'll click Finish. We'll click Next. Task 21 wants us to filter the data in the sales rep table to only show people who were hired after January 1st, 2011. It tells us to name the query sales rep 2011, and then it says do not save the changes to the sales rep table. What we want to do is open up the sales reps table. So we'll just double click on that. In the hire date field, we want to click the drop down, go to date filters and select after. The date we want to type in is January 1st, 2011. We'll go ahead and click OK. It then tells us to save this as a query named Sales Rep 2011. We'll go to the File tab here at the top. We're going to select Save As. Save Object As. We'll keep this selected and we'll select Save As. We'll call this Sales Rep 2011. And we'll change this to Query. We'll click OK. And then when we click Next, it's going to ask if we want to save our table. We'll go ahead and select No. Task 22 wants us to create a brand new table. It tells us that our primary key is going to be called Product ID, and we'll keep that at the automatic number. And then it tells us to create 3 other fields and gives us the field types. And then it tells us to name the table Products. Let's go to the Create tab here at the top. We're going to select Table, and then I want to change this view to Design View. It asks us what we want to call this table. We'll call it Products, capital P. And we'll click OK. And we'll go ahead and begin typing in the fields listed in the task. Go ahead and save the table. And we'll click Next. Task 23 tells us on our customer's report that we're going to change the conditional formatting to the customer ID control so that it applies a yellow background and a red text to records with a customer ID greater than 3. And then it tells us to save our design changes. We should note here that the conditional formatting is already there and we just have to edit a rule. We'll go ahead and right click on our customer's reports so that we can open it in Design View. We'll select our customer ID field. We're in the Format tab here at the top, and we're in the Control Formatting group. We'll select Conditional Formatting. We'll go ahead and select our rule here, and we'll select Edit Rule. We're going to change our fill to yellow, and we're going to change our text color to red. Everything else looks good, so we'll click OK. Apply. OK. We'll go ahead and save this. And we'll click Next. Task 24 wants us to modify our sales rep payment query. It tells us to include the hire date found on the sales rep table. It tells us to make this field the first in the query and to sort it in ascending order. And then we're to save and run the query. Let's go ahead and open up that query in Design View. In our sales rep table, we want to go ahead and select hire date. And then I'm going to select that column here so that I can click and drag that to the front. We'll change our sort here to ascending. We'll then go ahead and save this query and we'll run it. We'll click Next. Task 25 wants us to create a one-to-many relationship between the ID field found on the sales rep table and the sales rep ID field found on the customers table. It tells us to enforce the referential integrity and save the changes. Let's go to the Database Tool tab here at the top. We'll select Relationships, What we want to do is select the ID field in the sales reps table, and we're going to click and drag that over to the customers table, put it right over sales rep ID. It tells us that this is a one-to-many relationship, and we want to check this box that says enforce referential integrity, and we'll click create. We'll save the changes, and we'll click next. Task 26 wants us to use the query wizard to create a simple query called orders by product. It tells us to include all the fields on the orders table, and then it tells us to modify the query to only include orders that were placed for the product ID 8, and then it tells us to run and save the query. We want to go to the create tab here at the top, and in our queries group, we want to select query design. In this table, we want to open up the orders, and we can close out of this. It tells us to include all of the fields, so we'll double click on all of them. And then in our product ID, it tells us that we only want to show 8. So in our criteria, we'll type in equals 8. We'll then go ahead and run our query, and we'll save it. We'll close out of this, and we'll click next. Task 27 wants us to modify the count sales rep customers query by telling how many customers each sales rep has, and then tells us to run and save the query. To do that, let's go ahead and open up the query in design view. So we'll right click here and select design view. From here, what we want to do is go to the show hide group on the query tools design tab, and we're going to select totals. For the sales rep ID, we're going to change group by to count. And then we're going to run the query. It tells us to save it, so we will. And we'll click next. Task 28 tells us to reassign the tab order for our add customers form to automatic settings. To do that, we want to go ahead and open up the form. We'll go ahead and change the view to design view. We're on the form design tools design tab, and we're in the tools group. We're going to select tab order. And then what we want to do is select auto order. And we can click OK. And we'll close out of this form. And we'll click next. Task 29 wants us to add a new field to the customers report. It's going to give us some size and location for this new field. And then we're going to also resize a detailed section of the form. What we want to do is open up the customers report in design view. We're on the report design tools design tab. And what we want to do is click the add existing fields in the tools group. It tells us that we're going to add the sales rep ID, and we're going to place it underneath customer ID in the detail section. So what we'll do is we'll click and drag that down here. Let's go ahead and begin positioning. I'm going to go ahead and click this and drag it over. And notice I'm grabbing it by the gray spot in that field to drag it around. And now I'm going to resize these like it asked me to do. It tells me that I need to resize the detail section. So what we want to do that is to open up the property sheet, and we're going to change this to detail, and we're going to change this to 1. We'll hit enter to set that. We'll close out of this, and it tells us to save the changes. So we'll right click on the tab, select save, and we'll close out of this. And we'll click next. Task 30 tells us to back up our database to our GMetrix templates folder, and it tells us to name it GMX backup. To do that, we want to go to the file tab here at the top. We're going to select save as, and what we want to do is in the advanced group, select backup database, and then click save as. Once you map to your GMetrix templates folder, we'll go ahead and type the file name. We'll click save, and we'll click next.